In this video, you'll learn how to use PlaceOnPath to place objects on or relative to motion paths. To get started, let's open the included tutorial scene. This already has a motion path and some objects to work with. We could select the motion path object and add it to the Timeflow view by pressing Alt-tilde. Let's play the Timeflow view to preview the animation in the scene view. For our first object to place, we'll select the hexagon and add it to the view, pressing Alt-Shift-tilde. Then right-click to add automation, Place on Path. This adds two new channels, Placed Position and Placed Rotation, which are read-only. We can go over additional settings in the inspector. The motion path is automatically found and assigned by default. We can also place objects on a flyby path, which we'll go over a bit later. The length is a read-only value, showing the length of the motion path in world units. There are three methods for placing objects on a path. First, we have relative to the full path. When this mode is selected, the position sets the interpolation along the path with a value between 0 to 1. If wrap is enabled, the position loops over the path length, otherwise it is clamped at the start and end. When working with closed paths, using wrap allows the item to loop around the path. The time value can be used to place the object on the path at the specified time. This is based on the total duration of the path. You may use either position or time or both. The next mode is relative to the current time on path. This uses the position on the motion path at the current time in the animation. With this mode, the position and time values act as offsets. This mode is useful to make objects track with the motion path. And lastly, we can place objects relative to a specific node. This is helpful to position objects around a specific keyframe node on the path rather than using a fixed time or position. We can click Get Nearest to find the closest node. You can then use the position and time offsets to shift the object forward or backward on the path relative to the node. In the Timeflow view, we can press Ctrl-D to duplicate the object and then adjust the position offset to another location. Then press Get Nearest to find the nearest node, and then reset the position offset. Let's duplicate the object one more time, pressing Ctrl-D, but this time change it to full path mode. Then adjust the position. If we now select the motion path and edit the keyframes, the path placements automatically update. If you're using Place on Path for one-time placement without animation, it is recommended to set the runtime mode to editor only. This results in the behavior being destroyed upon awake during runtime and helps to optimize the scene. Also, if you wish to turn off dynamic updating so that object placements stay put unless you specifically update them, in update settings you can set the update mode to explicit. Now the placement only updates when the refresh button is pressed. Or if you press Refresh all instances of Place on Path are forced to update. One helpful tip to place a lot of objects on a path at once is in the motion path tools and options. The bounding frames feature may be used to place a prefab object in intervals along the path. For example, we can assign the ring hexagon prefab. Initially, this is only displayed in the scene view, but we can press Generate Objects to create them as game objects. We can now turn off the bounding frames option and see the objects created in the game view. Note, however, that if any changes are made to the path, the objects will need to be regenerated since they won't automatically realign. Let's now go over another use case for Place on Path using the main camera, which we can select and add to the Timeflow view pressing Alt-tilde. Again, we'll right-click to add automation, Place on Path. Let's set the mode relative to current time on path and shift the position back a bit so that the camera is behind the spaceship. For a smoother interpolation, let's go to the update settings and set it to late update so that the placement occurs after the motion path updates. We can adjust the position offset to move the camera up a bit, and then adjust the auto rotate look ahead time to look further down the path. Or we could change the rotation mode to look at and assign the ship object. To create a more lazy following effect, we could adjust the position smoothing, and also apply smoothing to the rotation separately. Let's now see how Place on Path can be used with the flyby behavior. In the hierarchy view, we'll select the flyby and circle objects and press Shift-1 to reactivate them, and then press Alt-tilde to add them to the Timeflow view. With the flyby object selected, we can view its path in the scene view, displayed as the red cube moving around the elliptical path. We can then select the circle object and right-click to add automation, place on path. In the inspector, we'll select Flyby, which automatically finds and assigns the flyby object in the scene, and then adjust the settings as desired. Everything functions the same as when working with a motion path, which we covered previously. That concludes this tutorial on using Place on Path. Please refer to the documentation links in the video description below for further information. Next up, we'll go over using the Place on Surface behavior.